It's a real pleasure to be invited to read at Ayrshire, Michael Hartnett. It's an honour to have one's name as a poet in the same sentence as Michael Hartnett's. So even though it's at a distance, I am delighted to be reading. There may be a tractor passing from time to time, but there's nothing I can do about that. I'm going to read from new work. My fourth collection is, as they say, forthcoming. I'm not quite sure when, but it's on its way. So I'm going to read the opening poem, which is called Test. When I was in primary school, when we did nature study, there was always a test after everything we studied, after each insect or plant. And the wording was always the same in the test. Tell what you know about. Tell what you know about the beetle. Tell what you know about the oak apple. So here is my poem, Test. Tell me what you know about the dandelion. Tell me what you know about the bee. Tell me what you know about the sun, moon and stars, and the sea's tasselled blanket, the fish that swim through it, its weave. Tell me what you know about the open coast, the swallowing brine brimming its rocky shore, the bird's rich textured concert, all feather and beak and itching parasites. Tell me what you know about the circulation of the blood, how, as you lie on the grassy crust of a windy cliff, you trust your heart will thump you into another day. Tell me what you know. Of course, we know so little, and in recent months in particular, we have, I think, all been disturbed by the tricks that time and our perception of time seems to play on us. So this next poem is called Pieces of String, and it starts with an epigram I found on Wikipedia by chance, and it goes, "It is impractical to use the same unit for the distance between two cities and the length of a needle." Pieces of string. Each evening I shake out my day, contrive a means to measure up the hours I've travelled, try to calculate the weight or shape, the height, the depth, the very substance of anything I met along the way. I fail, I'll tell you straight, I fail. The path to morning is a broken line tracing the spine of a country road, meandering through fog, a rain-drenched map, nothing left to set my compass by, to gauge how far I've come or remind me of anything I met along the way. Clocks aren't much use on edgeless days. Blurred numbers roll like a throw of unmarked dice, ricochet from the baffled corners of the house, conjuring the handless clock in Bergman's Wild Strawberries, a film my parents brought me to when I was 10. In an old man's dream, a coffin opens as it falls from a horse-drawn hearse. A hand emerges, the old man's own. It reaches up and tries to haul him back. A no-frills encounter with time's treachery I was too young to understand or forget. We even try to, we try to impose this order on, or some sort of order on just about anything. The next poem is, it came out of something that a very old friend of mine, a photographer in Barcelona, said to me. I proudly showed him a photograph I thought was good enough for him to like. And you'll see in the film, in the poem, what his reaction was. Out of Kilter, for Mike Merchant. "Get your horizon straight," the photographer said, dismissing my exquisite picture with 4 words. And now, although I know Earth's surface curves, I cannot leave the house or go to bed without first sizing up the distance, right and left, of sea to sky or sky to shore. Away from home, I search for horizontal lines to take my bearings from. The roofs of houses, a well-clipped hedge, wires strung between old poles, linking farm to barn, scraps of voice still snagged in the sagging cables. Swifts littering the sky with tipsy quadrants, and the noon sun pressing down, plumb to the tilted ground beneath my feet. We've tried imposing order, sort of tried to put manners in a way on language too, and this next poem is to do with that and the far-reaching effects of it. It's called What's in a Name. In the beginning, a mouthful of sounds, a handful of letters, the tyranny of words. A word was said, and it was said alchemy, and all around May-warm broom flowered, heady with sweet honey gold. Was thought broom, and then said, and fragrant petals fell, twigs scratched and turned brown, swept the hearth where Cinderella moped. Saw scuttle, and then said it, heard the hiss, the slither of snake, said apple, said out. So they left, mistaking the word for the thing. Literal as obedience, Eve opened a gate that was no more than a word. Adam locked it behind them. Alarm. A faint whistle, a silver whisper, a secret shared in the night. I saw snow, white sheets stretched under sentinel trees, the moon above, a faint breeze in high branches. When the whistle grew to a whine, I turned in the bed, buried my head under pillows. I watched wolves stalk in single file, their paw prints even as holes in a flute, each rough-pelted creature making a little leap as it drew its paws up out of the depth of the snow. With each leap, a sudden shriek, shriller, louder now, loud enough to cause me to sit up, stare into the dark, hear the scarlet wail, smell smoke. It's hard to keep away from the idea of the future, the threat, the dread we all feel, I think, when we project into the future. And yet nobody seems to collectively do a huge amount about it. So I thought of Cassandra and how she was ignored with her prophecies and everything she saw and said. So this poem is called What Were Her Parents Thinking When They Called Her Cass? It comes most nights now, the dream she can't get rid of. It goes like this. The staircase to the basement opens like an aching throat. Air shunts her face and neck. She tests her footing, falls, tumbles through hoarse shadows. Her pupils pool, ears stretch to gauge the silence. Nothing. Only darkness, louder than sound, time slowed to no time. She's paused between two worlds. She waits to surface. The way you wait in supermarket car parks for the lift. the way you wait for a parent to remember you. And that's not all. Last night it changed. It was as if she'd hit a switch and rows of neon strip lights burst the silence, flickered into dazzle, lit her with the cruel fluorescence of a killing place. She stood in an abandoned abattoir, steel hooks idle, the tiles bright white. Somewhere water ran, a clock began to tick. Her world had flipped to future tense. The hooks began to sway, the rhythm tachycardiac. And then the sudden cranking of a vast machine, a slow, robotic creature waking up. Tonight, she will not close her eyes. Instead, she'll walk the moonlit wood behind the house. She'll watch the sky drop stars through naked branches. Say a prayer. Well, I didn't call my daughter Cass, I called her Lisa. And the next poem is for her. And it looks at a different sort of anxiety. The poem is called As My Daughter Flies North, I Examine My Fear. It was a winter or two ago. She was flying back from Reunion Island, where she had worked, and I just, as one does, my mind was with her until she had safely landed, and this is the poem. As my daughter flies north, I examine my fear, for Lisa. All night I cup you in my feathered hands and picture in the studded sky a silver bird, cold carcass, you slumbering in the hum, the cool penumbra, hushed comfort of the steward's slender palms. This morning, as I lean into the wind, a kestrel rides a fold of pillowed air, buoyed up by nothing but its own intent, its feathers spread to steer and hold, trust the instinct it was born with. 6 hoopers suddenly above me, a honking contrail quaffing sun, wings in steady semaphore to the unfledged world. They land on liquid runways, knead the water, glide to silken stops. Trust us, they seem to say. Your stiff-winged bird will make soft landing. We taught you all you know of flight. So I'm just going to read 2 more poems. One which takes us back into the present and these very unusual and uncertain, to use that word we keep coming back to, times. I've had some difficult sleepless nights, and this poem came out of one of those. It's called Short Nights, Choppy Seas. The wind has chipped the sea like delph, thrashed and flayed it to worked hide. It has nothing more to say to me today and turns its rugged back. I pull the blind, go in search of sleep instead. All through these short, long nights I wake and toss and wake again, my bed a floundering raft, beached at last in the slow linger of returning light, the thinning chorus of birds. My body buzzed all night, aches hummed through me like an electric fence. I lie in the relief of dawn, listen for a faint tick-tick, proof the current flows, taking me back to how we used to dare each other, how even from the safety of the longest stem of grass, we'd apprehend the bite of the unseen beast, jumping back and squealing at the slightest kick, or dropping stalk after stalk before they so much as touched the wire. Which led my early morning wakefulness to thoughts of touch, how through all these long weeks and months we've done without, How when we're sure it's safe again, we'll reach out cautious hands, slowly open famished arms, half fearful of the pent-up charge. And I'd like to finish with, I'll perhaps have time for two more, which look more optimistically to the future, I suppose, to that strange and unquantifiable thing called hope, and which we must hold on to, I think, at all costs. So this poem is called St. Bridget Dreams of the Arrival of Spring, and then I'll just read one more after that. St. Bridget dreams of the arrival of spring. Deep in her skull, a bud is forming. A bird has nested in her wasted chest. Small twigs tickle, eggs speckle the moss. She says these things, says she sees them in the curtained dark. Deep in her nest, a flower may open, a tulip black as the years been long. She says it's hiding its yellow tongue, biding its time to part its petals, surprise the brightening room with light, pour out the dark. And I think I'd like to finish with a poem which which I haven't got with me, so it'll have to wait until my book comes out and you can read it. It's been a real pleasure to read. It's strange because I'm here on my own. I don't know who you are or where you are, but I have to just say a big thank you to Aisha Michael Hartnett, and let us all hope for a brighter future and an important future for poetry. Thank you.